Hello again, this video is just an introduction into trigonometry, and trigonometry is, as the name suggests, trig refers to triangles, okay, and metry means the measurement of, and so trigonometry means the measurement of triangles. And basically what we're talking about is, wow, that's a really good triangle. I'm really happy with that. Very good. Okay, let's have a look at this. What we're talking about here is for every triangle that has a certain angle, and we'll just call that angle theta in here. So there's an angle, whatever that angle theta is. That's just like x in there. We don't know what that angle is. But for every triangle that has an angle of theta there, what happens is that the ratio of the sides will always be the same. In other words, if I drew, instead of doing that, let's say 22 degrees. If I draw a triangle of 22 degrees and just draw it in secret and don't show you, and then you go away and you draw a triangle of 22 degrees, yours might be 10 times bigger than mine, or vice versa. It doesn't matter what size it is. If this has a right angle and a 22 degree angle, then what will happen if I get this side and divide the length of that side by the length of this side and get a number, get some number, then that number will be the same for your triangle. Your triangle, if you get this length here and divide it by this length, it'll be the same number. In other words, the ratio is the same. In other words, it's just been scaled bigger or smaller. It's just been zoomed in or zoomed out. And we call that particular ratio a certain thing, and I'll get into that in a second. And it's true for all of the sides of the triangle, for any true. So if you got this side and divided it by this side, then you'll get a particular ratio as well. And it'll be the same for my triangle and the same for your triangle. And we give these three ratios special names, and so let's have a look at that. Let's go back to theta now. Before we sort of go into that, let's just name these couple of things here. We learnt from Pythagoras that the side that's opposite 90 degrees is called the hypotenuse. Hypotenuse, and we just call that hype for short. Hype, like that. Okay, that's the side opposite 90 degrees, and it's also the longest side of the triangle. Also, we have a different side opposite the angle that we're talking about. So if we're talking about this angle here, then the side that's opposite that angle we call, funnily enough, opposite. Okay, OPP for short. Okay, opposite the angle that we're talking about, theta. The one that's left over we call the adjacent, and adjacent means next to, and adja for short. Okay, it means next to. Okay, adjacent to that side. So there are three sides, and you need to get used to knowing which side is which. I'll run through a couple of examples in a second. So there we go. Hypotenuse is opposite the 90 degrees, and it's also the longest side. Opposite is opposite the angle that we know or that we're trying to find out. Okay, and adjacent is the one that's left over once you've done hypotenuse and opposite. Also, it's the one that's next to the angle that's not the hypotenuse. Alright, so there we go. Let's have a look at this. Now, I said a second ago that there's three ratios, and the first ratio is called sine theta. And the sine theta is the ratio between the opposite side and the hypotenuse side. So if I get the length of the opposite side and divide that by the length of the hypotenuse side, for any triangle you'll always get the same ratio for that particular angle. Okay, so that's the first one. The second ratio that we've got is called cos theta. And cos theta is the ratio of this side here, which is the adjacent, divided by this side here, which is the hypotenuse. So cos theta is the ratio of that. So every triangle with angle of theta, some angle, will have that ratio. Lastly, the last one is called tan theta. And you've probably seen these three buttons on your calculator. I always wondered what they were. Tan theta is the ratio of this side over here, this vertical side, and this horizontal side here. And so it's equal to opposite over adjacent. And they're our key, highly important 3 ratios there, and they're highly defined, used all the time in all sorts of things, because triangles pop up all the time in different science fields and engineering and that sort of thing. Okay, so they're the 3 ratios, and we need to be able to remember these. We need to be able to quickly remember what these are. Now, if you look at the first letter of each of these things, so you've got sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. You get the 3 letters S-O-H. Sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. Sine theta equals opposite over hypotenuse. So we call that SOH, S-O-H. Let's have a look at this next one. Cos theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and so we call that C-A-H. And lastly, I've got some pinky sort of colour, tan theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. And so I've got tan theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. And this here is called Sohcahtoa, and this helps you remember the 3 ratios. Sohcahtoa, and they're important to remember. And it means sine equals opposite over hypotenuse, cosine equals adjacent over hypotenuse, and tan equals opposite over adjacent. And they're important to remember. And that's basically the intro to trigonometry. I'll just do quickly some sort of examples of being able to name them. Let's just do sort of 3 triangles. Right, they're poorly drawn. Let's say that's 41 degrees, and maybe something like this. And let's say this is 17 degrees in that sort of angle there. Okay, let's just have a look at this. I just want to name all the sides in these particular triangles. Okay, so let's label each side. So firstly, for this triangle, which side is the hypotenuse? That's always a great place to start. The longer side and the side that's opposite the 90-degree angle there, that there is the hypotenuse. Awesome. Looking at the angle, which side is opposite the angle? This one over here. So that one is the opposite side. Which side is left over? Adjacent. It's next to the angle, and it's not the hypotenuse. Okay, so it's that one there. So we've labelled those 3 sides. Let's do this one. Which side's the long side? It's this one here, and it's opposite the 90 degrees, isn't it? It's opposite there. So this side here is the hypotenuse. Opposite, that side there is opposite the angle there, so we call that one the opposite, and the one that's left over is our adjacent there. And that's all there is to naming it. In the next video, we'll start looking at how to actually use trigonometry to solve some triangles.